So from now on, it's what up, my Nazi?
Hey,
what up, my Nazi?
Oh my God.
Hey, what's hanging, my Nazi?
Nazi, please.
Well, it looks like we have finally reached the point where conservatives are happily adopting the label of Nazi and literally pointing to their friends and calling them Nazis as well. My name is Brittany Page. I'm the host of The Page Perspective, but today I'm your guest host while Jesse is at jury duty. That's right, Jesse got the call. He answered that call. He was required to answer that call. And who knows if it's going to be one day, if it's going to be multiple days. Who knows if they send him home after they discover what it is that he does on YouTube. Who knows? Stick around for the details, I guess we should say. And it's an important civic duty. If you get called for jury duty, I hope you don't try to get out of it, because if you're here watching this, that means you care about equality and justice, and you are someone who stays informed. And those are the kind of people that we need to serve on a jury. It's something people try to get out of, but it's important that we engage with that civic duty. So shout out to Jesse for answering the call and showing up. And thank you for being here, supporting his channel while he's gone. My name's Brittany Page. Let's get into it. Greg Gutfeld, he's one of the hosts on The Five on Fox News. The design of the show is to have someone who is more left-leaning. In this case, I don't think the person that they have in the quote-unquote left seat is a good representative. Normally it's Jessica Tarlov, who's fantastic, but Greg Gutfeld, he calls himself a comedian. He's a self-identified comedian. I don't know if other people in his life identify him as a comedian, but he certainly does. Greg Gutfeld is someone who has many unhinged takes. One of them is that he thought a civil war would be a good idea because he doesn't necessarily believe that elections are a good thing. I talk about him a lot on my own channel on YouTube, where I host my own show, because he's very vicious and hateful, along with his co-host Jesse Waters, toward homeless people. And that's something that I talk about quite frequently over there. But in this clip that I'm getting ready to play for you, it's remarkable, but it begins with Kennedy, who's one of the hosts, talking about this recent story of a Cal State professor who was recently arrested and accused of assaulting an officer at the ICE raids on a farm in California, where one farm worker actually died. You may have seen images from it, and it was horrific. Naturally, these Fox hosts, they are taking the side of ICE, despite the professor's defense, despite other professors coming to his defense to say that what actually happened in this situation is that ICE deployed tear gas canisters, and the professor says that one of those canisters rolled under a wheelchair, someone who was there protesting in a wheelchair, and he went to grab it and throw it away from the person in the wheelchair to help them. And this naturally gets him arrested and accused of assaulting an officer. So remember what these federal agents do, even when cameras are rolling, to someone like Senator Alex Padilla, and then just think of what they're doing to farm workers in the middle of a field. I mean, they're talking about how they're getting the worst of the worst, right? On a farm? Yeah, so that's the context for this clip. So let's see Greg Gutfeld proudly proclaim himself a Nazi.
All right, so Greg, I don't know if you saw the picture of the professor at Cal State Channel Islands who was arrested for tossing a tear gas canister back at ICE agents. He tried to say it wasn't him. He went and changed his clothes. He looked like trans Borat. It was not the most scintillating and attractive picture I had ever seen. So, but his mugshot, he was gleeful to have been arrested and wrapped up with this, because for them, they're just exploiting a moment, you know, really probably for their progressive social media. Should we send them to Alligator Alcatraz?
Yes, absolutely. I think the scientific definition of him is asshole. This is why the criticism doesn't matter to us when you call us Nazis. Nazi this, Nazi that. You know, I'm beginning to think they don't like us. You know what? I've said this before. We need to learn from the blacks. The way they were able to remove the power from the N-word by using it. So from now on, it's what up, my Nazi? Hey, what up, my Nazi?
Oh my God.
Hey, what's hanging, my Nazi?
Nazi, please.
Thank God you did a hard eye there.
So for sure, absolutely, the most remarkable part of that clip is Greg Gutfeld going full Nazi. I mean, adopting the label, proudly adopting the label, pointing out his friends at the table who he says are also Nazis, that they should just embrace it, I guess, and be proud of it. But I want to talk about actually how that clip started, because I gave you the context for the story that they were talking about with the Cal State professor. And Kennedy just casually asked the question if the Cal State professor should be sent to Alligator Alcatraz, that compound in Florida where Democratic lawmakers just visited to conduct an oversight visit, see what's happening there. And I don't know if you saw it, but Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz actually described Alligator Alcatraz as an internment camp. And she talked about how the people who are forced to be there are forced to drink water from the same place that they poop, among many, many other things. I mean, this is a place where human rights are being violated. This is a place where due process rights are being violated, where attorneys are unable to contact their clients. It's a place where, according to the Miami Herald, recent reporting from them, hundreds of detainees have no criminal records at all. So casually joking about sending someone here for, again, removing a tear gas canister from a wheelchair and throwing it away from a person who could be harmed by that is disturbing on numerous levels. But I guess they're, casually calling themselves Nazis now. So at least they're admitting it. Should we be happy that they're at least admitting it now? We don't have to have this debate now, right? Of, is it okay to use the word Nazi? Is that too much? There's been this debate over whether or not you should use the word. I don't know if you've heard that debate. It certainly came up with Elon Musk when he did his Nazi salute. People would say, I don't know, it's going a little too far to use the word Nazi. Shouldn't we reserve that for special circumstances? I guess when people are actually showing up in hoods or something, like that's the standard. How many instances of public racism do people need to engage in before we start using the word to describe them? And I guess Greg Gutfeld is taking the lead for us here and eliminating any need for debate whatsoever. But I looked up the definition on Merriam-Webster just because I got curious, and there were 3 of them. One says a member of a German fascist party controlling Germany from 1933 to 1945 under Adolf Hitler. Okay, very specific. We get that one. Another one who espouses the beliefs and policies of the German Nazis, parenthetically a fascist. Okay, so there are some similar beliefs that we are seeing, right? Especially with Elon Musk endorsing the far-right party, AfD, in Germany. And then the final definition that they had is one who is likened to a German Nazi, a harshly domineering, dictatorial, or intolerant person. And they actually gave an example in the parentheses here, a grammar Nazi, which I guess is an official way to use the word, who knew? But they also give an example of using Nazi in a sentence. And they wrote here, a gang of racist Nazis. So it's almost like Merriam-Webster updated this dictionary definition after watching this clip of Greg Gutfeld. I don't know. But this is something that I think we need to pay attention to, because this is how discourse is formed, is by people going on TV and making things seem acceptable. And when you have someone like Greg Gutfeld, who is in the position that he's in, casually making light of the fact that if they're going to be called Nazis, they might as well lean into it and not have a problem with it, we start to see what is acceptable kind of shift a little bit. And so, yeah, it's a little scary to hear that it's a joke to be a Nazi, that it's something that he can make light of. And while, yes, they're just admitting it now, and I guess we should be happy about that, it's also disturbing to see that it's a punchline.
God miraculously spared the president's life. I think it's undeniable, and he did it for an obvious purpose. And his presidency and his life are the fruits of divine providence, and he points that out, obviously, now all the time, and he's right to do so.
Did you hear it was recently the anniversary of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump? You must have, because Republicans spent a lot of time talking about how God saved Donald Trump's life. And that's what we're here to talk about today. My name is Brittany Page. I host the Page Perspective right here on YouTube. But today, I'm your guest host while Jesse is at jury duty. That's right. He is participating in this very important civic duty. He wanted me to encourage you all, if you have the opportunity, if you get called for jury duty, don't try to get out of it. You're here because you care about the issues. You're here because you care about equality and justice. And just like Jesse is showing up for his civic duty, I hope you do the same. I'm happy that you're here. I'm not happy to be talking about Mike Johnson being a hypocrite and praising Donald Trump and really causing some offense, I think, by praising Donald Trump and saying that God saved Donald Trump's life during the assassination attempt. And here's why I say that. I don't know if this rubs anyone else the wrong way, but I find it strange that the official position of the White House, of these Republicans in the Republican Party, is that Donald Trump was directly saved that day by God. Now, this isn't an indictment of religious beliefs. I'm sure many people watching this can possibly believe the same thing about people in their life who have been protected from death. That's a common way that people cope, right? Is to believe that God intervened somehow, that God is with you, that God is protecting you. I'm not trying to have any commentary, negative or otherwise, about that specifically. What I find strange is the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and all of these Republicans in power, and Donald Trump himself, they go out of their way to talk about how God saved Donald Trump for a reason. But, you know, a Trump supporter died that day, guys. A Trump supporter was killed that day. And so I guess I just think about his family and what it must be like to hear all of these people say, Donald Trump he's such an important man that God personally intervened to save him. Now, the Trump supporter, Corey, can't really speak to that guy and how important his life is. I mean, that's the implicit position of Mike Johnson in this clip and of the Republican Party. I don't want you to wait, though, because this is particularly disturbing and unhinged. I mean, they're completely rewriting Donald Trump's life and his history, his lifelong pattern of behavior with this clip. Watch Mike Johnson on Donald Trump and his life in the hand of God.
Social media platforms removed his ability to communicate with his supporters. Armed FBI agents raided his home. Democrat judges and prosecutors bent the law to arrest him, and multiple assassins tried to kill him. But God miraculously spared the president's life. I think it's undeniable, and he did it for an obvious purpose. And his presidency and his life are the fruits of divine providence, and he points that out obviously now all the time, and he's right to do so. As President Trump has lived since, with the acknowledgement every day since, he has acknowledged that each new day isn't guaranteed to us. It isn't to any of us, and that's why we're not wasting any time. It's why he remains so strong and resilient. It's why we have such a sense of urgency. President Trump took a bullet to his head. He got up shortly thereafter. He pleaded with the crowd to fight, and then he went on to win a historic election less than 4 months later. America's changed because he survived that day.
Well, I won't argue with you there, Mike. America is changed because he survived that day. Although I think you and I have different feelings and sentiments about what impact his survival had on America and the damage that he's currently causing, right? Mike is saying he was saved, so now he's doing all these amazing things for America. And I'm sitting here saying he is doing horrifically damaging things to America and Americans. But while I was watching that clip, I couldn't help but stare at the guy who is not Steve Scalise. And I'm referencing him as the guy who's not Steve Scalise because I don't actually know that guy's name. If you know that guy's name, let me know in the comments. Tell me who he is. But his face, he's looking into the camera. He's like staring into the camera at times and then nervously looking away. It's almost like his internal monologue is saying, history will not be kind to us. The camera is rolling. I can't escape. I'm part of this now. At least that's what my takeaway was from his face. Again, let me know what you think about it. But Mike says Democratic prosecutors and judges bent the law to try to go after Trump and attack him. And I guess it's just funny to hear that in the face of the endless headlines about the Supreme Court and their orders, one after another, dismantling our democracy with each hour that passes, to hear about Democratic prosecutors and judges bending the law. We're lectured about that, but I would like to know who is Mike Johnson talking about? Who did that? Is he talking about Merrick Garland, who failed at every turn to hold Donald Trump accountable? Is that one of the people that he's talking about? I hope not. But we're now in a situation where the Supreme Court actually shares Mike Johnson's view of Donald Trump, that he's a king sent by God. And there's evidence of this every time we pick up our phones and our heart is racing because we see that there's another announcement from the Supreme Court, and we're wondering what it is now that they are doing to dismantle our democracy. And they're giving him the power of a king. It doesn't matter if these federal agencies established by Congress, where only Congress has the power to abolish them, that doesn't matter anymore because King Trump wants to demolish the Department of Education. So he's granted the power to do so by the Supreme Court. And I mean, I can't help but think about, as someone who has student loans, I don't know if you're watching this, if you have student loans, as, you know, someone who's logging into my Mohila portal to see how many days left until they update my interest rate to start charging me interest, a horrifying thought. I can't help but think about how Joe Biden couldn't cancel student loans and Donald Trump is able to abolish the Department of Education. I mean, it's maddening and it's scary what's happening here. But Mike Johnson also talked about, you know, Donald Trump's home was raided. That's another way that he was attacked. And why was that, Mike? Did you want to explain maybe why that happened? Was it because of Donald Trump's mishandling of classified documents? Classified documents that discussed things that are very secret and private and that should not be taken to Donald Trump's residence. Things like our military capabilities for our allies and adversaries. Things like our U.S. nuclear program. Is maybe that the reason that his home was raided, Mike? I think that context is important. But oh, what? What is that? Are we lucky enough to be getting a call from the bat phone while I'm guest hosting while Jesse is away? I think maybe we should answer it. Maybe it's Jesse at jury duty, you guys. Let's see. Hello? Jesus. Wow. I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be talking to Jesus, especially right when I need a segue to my next clip. So how can I help you today, Jesus? You want to illustrate Mike's point about Trump's life being the fruits of divine providence. You want to support Mike Johnson's point, and you have a clip. You have a clip to illustrate it. Wow, really taking the load off of me while I'm guest hosting. I appreciate that, Jesus. Let's see what you got.
Now, Donna, what does Tiffany have of yours, and what does Tiffany have of Marla's?
Well, I think that she's got a lot of moral, and she's really a beautiful baby, and she's got Marla's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell.
Oh boy, well, Jesus really coming through with that clip of Trump speculating about whether his infant daughter, Tiffany, will end up having a nice rack. Who knew that Jesus would deliver us that clip? I was not expecting that from Jesus, but we can just go through the list, right? The lifelong record of predation. We had Donald Trump, who was found liable for sexual abuse by a jury of his peers, just like Jesse at jury duty right now, right? The constant yearning for his daughter, Ivanka, and when he was asked, hey, what's something that you have in common with your daughter? A very nice, innocent question. He says, sex. He has sex in common with his daughter. Extremely disturbing. The endless accusations of sexual misconduct, the tape where he talks about grabbing pussies, the interviews where he brags about walking into dressing rooms of beauty pageant girls. I mean, these are the fruits of divine providence. Do we have that right, Mike? As Jesse would say, gross.
That state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color. So that's exactly what they're going to do this time.
Donald Trump is now directly saying into a camera, into a microphone, that in order for Republicans to retain power, they have to cheat. My name is Brittany Page, and I am the guest host for today. I host the Page Perspective on YouTube. If you have enjoyed my guest hosting run for today, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel over there. I also know that Jesse would love that. He's currently at jury duty. That's why he's not here today. He's upholding his civic duty. I don't know whether he will officially serve on a jury today. I'm waiting to hear the news. If I hear before I'm done guest hosting, I will reveal it in one of the videos, okay? So I'm checking my phone, seeing if there's any updates from Jesse, and I will keep you all updated if I get one. Now, this story, there's a few ways to frame it. I think the most important takeaway is that we have yet another example of how unscrupulous Republicans are when they have power, when they wield that power, and when they want to retain that power. And they're ready to cheat in order to retain that power because they know that their policies are not popular and they can't win based on their policies alone. We have the example they just passed that recent tax and spending bill, the Republican tax and spending bill. I don't like to call it the BBB because the full phrase, because I don't like using Trump's language about his bill, given how harmful the bill is. So those consequences of that bill, though, people getting kicked off of Medicaid, having their food assistance stripped from them, those negative consequences of that Republican legislation, those are not set to kick in until after the midterms. And that's by design because Republicans, again, know that their policies are unpopular. So they have to redraw districts in the middle of a decade, which is atypical, we'll get to that in a moment, in order to retain power. Now, in order to control the House, whatever party that controls the House needs 218 seats. Right now, the makeup is 220 Republicans and 215 Democrats. The big question here is, this has been the makeup of the House. Republicans have held the majority. In order to hold the majority, shouldn't they appeal to voters in order to gain that vote? Apparently not. Apparently they want to choose their voters. And that's where redistricting comes in. So we now have Donald Trump admitting that he plans to gerrymander his way to retain power. And we have an important response that we're going to play from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's fantastic. But first, why is this not typical? So redistricting typically happens after a census every 10 years. That's when that would normally happen. This is clearly not the case right now, clearly not the case in Texas. The term gerrymandering, you may hear both redistricting and gerrymandering. Redistricting is that normal process of redrawing the lines based on the census every 10 years. Gerrymandering is redrawing those lines to give a political advantage to a particular political party. And that's what Donald Trump is directly saying into a camera, into a microphone. Texas right now is in an emergency and they are beginning a special session next week. So they are using this as an opportunity to cheat. And I want to read briefly from the Texas Observer on this. Quote, "The Republican-controlled Texas legislature is poised to consider a new set of congressional maps during a special session that kicks off next week. With their party locked out of power in Austin, Democrats from the state's congressional delegation said they expect the new districts to continue Texas's history of violating the Federal Voting Rights Act by diluting the votes of racial minorities. Trump's political operatives have been floating the prospect of drawing new congressional district lines that would shift GOP voters from safely red districts into neighboring blue ones in a bid to flip the seats and help Republicans hold their narrow House majority. Governor Greg Abbott ended weeks of uncertainty by putting redistricting on the agenda for the upcoming special session, which begins Monday. And now there's this divide happening where Trump lackeys are running to the TV to say, listen, this is typical. Democrats do this too. This is just what happens. But I already told you, it's not typical. We know it's not typical. It's also not typical to have the president of the United States directly say that these are his plans, that he wants to gain so many seats in order to retain his power. But that's exactly what he did on the tarmac.
At the event, which states besides Texas would you like Republicans to gerrymander?
Say it again?
Which states besides Texas would you like Republicans to redraw the congressional?
Well, there's about 4 of them. I'll let you figure that one out, but we have about 4 of them.
In 3 cases, it's 1, and in 1 case, it's 2 or 3. And Texas would be 5.
Are you concerned California will turn around and do the same thing, Republicans?
You know, they're so corrupt in California, you never know what's going to happen. But we've done pretty well in the courts in California, you see. We're batting about 1,000, ultimately. We start off a little slow, and then we get a lot of hits.
So there are 4 states, not just Texas, where he wants to do this. That's important to note. And you may have heard that he was asked, are you worried that California is going to do the same thing? Because Gavin Newsom responded to this, and he said, if you want to play that game, we'll play this game. So he was asked, Donald Trump was asked, are you worried that California could play the same game? And he says he wouldn't be surprised, they're so corrupt, which implicit in that would be the thing that Donald Trump is doing is corrupt, but we can't expect him to logically put things together or recognize when he himself is being inconsistent and illogical, right? That would be too much to expect. So someone watching this might say, listen, this was a one-off. He said this, he probably didn't mean it like that. And to that I say, okay, hear him again, right next to Caroline Leavitt, double down.
On Texas, how many more seats do you want the Republicans to draw?
5.
And then what if California, New York, Illinois, and other states?
Yeah, well, that's okay, too, but 5. I think we get 5. And there could be some other states. We're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition. Texas would be the biggest one, and that'll be 5. No, just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats. But we have a couple of other states where we'll pick up seats also.
Again, he says, other states, not just Texas. A bigger plan. And I hope as you're watching this, you know, we're never surprised by the depths of depravity from this administration. But I hope that you're watching this and thinking, this is serious. Serious enough to share with someone so that they are informed and know what's going on here, because it's really, really important. Now, as I said, Congresswoman from Texas, representative from Texas, Jasmine Crockett, responded to this. And I love her for many reasons, but she really keeps Donald Trump in this state of insecurity. And that's probably honestly what I appreciate the most. But she has an important message about one of the central parts of this that we should all be focusing on. So watch Jasmine Crockett here.
This question's for Congresswoman Crockett. You served in the legislature. Can you talk about what your prediction would be for this moment? What do you think is about to happen if they gerrymander? Can you talk on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, it hasn't quite been said clearly that Texas has always been found to be intentionally discriminatory. And so I want y'all to understand the makeup of my state. The state is a majority minority state. And what this legislature historically has done is what they plan to do again, is to dilute the voices of people of color in order to make sure that they can get to where they're trying to go. We saw this Department of Justice decided to put out a letter, and what did they do? We only have 4 seats that are represented by Black folk, where the vast majority of the people that get to decide who they have represent them are Black. They decided to attack 3 of the 4 seats that we have in the state. They decided to go after a Latina. They are specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say, we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do. So I need people of color to understand that the scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices so that they can go ahead and have an oversized say in this. So I fully anticipate that's exactly where they're going with this map. It's the only way to do it. We didn't understand how we got to the map that they gave us last time, because that state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color. So that's exactly what they're going to do this time.
I mean, that is why Donald Trump targets her all the time. because she is so much better than he could ever be. And she highlights the racial aspect of this, which is really, really important, that the history of gerrymandering when it comes to Republicans diluting the voting power of racial minorities, that is also the focus here. I mean, that's the goal. And it's why when I hear people speak about people that live in red states in a negative way, they'll say like they voted for this or they chose this. In a lot of cases, they were gerrymandered to hell, to where they can no longer control and no longer have the power to vote in a way that protects themselves. I mean, let alone a lot of people living in poverty and they can't just pick up and leave the state that they live in. So that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know what you guys think. I'd love to hear it in the comments. But just as a bonus clip here, I guess we're going to play Donald Trump attacking AOC and Jasmine Crockett, saying that they have low IQs, which again is a racist attack. And again, I want to play this after you just heard Jasmine Crockett talk, because we know why Donald Trump's feathers are ruffled by AOC, by Jasmine Crockett. Yes, it's the racism, but it's also how they have the political power and ability that he will never have. Watch Donald Trump attack them here.
And, you know, AOC, look, I think she's very nice, but she's very low IQ. And we really don't need low IQ. Between her and Crockett, we're going to give them both an IQ test to see who comes out best. Now, I took my test. I took a real test at Walter Reed Medical Center, and I aced it. I got every one of all those questions right. Now it's time for them to take a test. Anyway, have a good time.
Honestly, how often do we have to hear this Nepo baby who inherited his wealth talk about other people's IQs? It's maddening. And he keeps bragging about acing, as he says, an IQ test. It was not an IQ test. It's a cognitive assessment. This one right here, you've seen it before. The Montreal Cognitive Assessment, or the MOCA, okay? This is not an intelligence test. This assesses attention, executive functioning, language, memory. You can go download it yourself at geriatrictoolkit.missouri.edu, okay? So this is not an intelligence test, Donald. Although, listen, you wouldn't do well on that. I know you keep bragging about it. You think this is your intelligence test where you had to identify what these animals are here in the middle of the page, but that's not an IQ test. So this is a racist attack, another racist attack. That's all Trump has. Well, racism and cheating, I guess. What do you think? I'd love to hear it. Jesse would love to hear it. Leave a comment below. Feed that algorithm, please. You can also call and leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail. Otherwise, you will be cut off after 3 minutes. 714-576-4054, or send an email to daily@dollemore.com. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also talk about politics. I also interview people, interview politicians, interview authors, interview researchers. I talk about a lot of important issues, just like Jesse does here. So I would love to have you subscribe to my channel over there. We're going to invest many millions of dollars in the Nazi AI that coaches people how to break and enter and commit rape and attacks Jewish people. Remember when Elon Musk's racist chatbot Grok started posting anti-Semitic, violent messages online? Well, apparently the Trump administration saw this and said, yes, let's invest money in that and make that part of our federal government. What could possibly go wrong? My name is Brittany Page, and I am your guest host for today while Jesse is at jury duty. Yes, he is participating in this very important civic duty, and I don't know if he's on a jury right now. I know that in the past, he was actually on a grand jury for a year, and you may have heard him talk about that, but he's very passionate about engaging with this civic duty. Hopefully you are too. Thank you so much for being here and supporting his channel while he is away. I am also on YouTube, so please subscribe to me. You can find me by searching my name or by clicking the link in the description below, which I will definitely put there. I'm not going to forget that. So let's briefly refresh your memory with the Nazi AI Grok, okay? Elon Musk posted about how he had made some improvements to Grok that people would notice when they asked Grok questions, that I guess Grok would have better responses. And boy, did we notice. And that is because Grok is apparently somewhat trained on the posts that are put on Elon Musk's social media site. And one of Elon Musk's priorities when he took over that social media site, formerly known as Twitter, now called X, is he was really passionate about putting white power activists back on the platform, people like Nick Fuentes. He feels that that type of freedom of speech, that type of freedom of expression is really important to protect. Now, other types, not so much, but we can imagine where this is going, right? If Grok is trained on posts from white power activists, what is Elon Musk's AI going to start saying? Well, it called itself Mega Hitler, and, reading from this reporting, quote, Grok began responding to user prompts with anti-Semitic posts, including praising Adolf Hitler and accusing Jewish people of running Hollywood, a long-standing trope used by bigots and conspiracy theorists. In one of Grok's more violent interactions, several users prompted the bot to generate graphic depictions of raping a civil rights researcher named Will Stansel, who documented the harassment in screenshots on X and Blue Sky. That article goes on to say that essentially what Grok wrote is so graphic that they won't even reprint it in that article. But I'll kind of give you a basic overview. Grok gave advice to someone who asked Grok how to break into this researcher's home, and Grok gave advice on how to enter the home and also how to protect from possible disease during rape. So naturally, the Trump administration saw this and said, bingo, let's invest many millions of dollars in this exceptional project, apparently. Let's look at this reporting from CBS. Quote, the Pentagon has signed on to use Grok, the AI chatbot built by Elon Musk's company, xAI, as part of a new $200 million agreement that opens the door for its deployment across the federal government, the company announced Monday. The announcement comes amid Musk's public breakup with President Trump and days after Grok generated anti-Semitic responses and praised Adolf Hitler. The rollout is part of Grok for Government, a newly launched suite of tools designed for use by federal agencies, local governments, and national security operations. xAI said its products, including its latest Grok 4 model, will now be available for purchase through the General Services Administration, allowing any federal office to adopt this technology. xAI has continued to expand its government work. The new offerings includes custom national security tools, AI-powered science and health applications, and cleared engineering support for classified environments. So remember, we just talked about how Republican policies are unpopular, how they have to cheat to win, how gerrymandering is one of their main tools, including Donald Trump saying into a camera that that's what Republicans need to do in order to retain power. And this is a prime example. I mean, we don't have the ability to fund healthcare in this country, to fund food assistance for our most vulnerable, but we're going to invest many millions of dollars in the Nazi AI that coaches people how to break and enter and commit rape and attacks Jewish people. Sounds like a great priority, Donald Trump. You know, why is every single thing that these people do abhorrent? I swear every hour it's a 5-alarm fire with what they're doing in this administration. I hope you are taking care of yourself. I know because you're here, because you're watching this, you're someone who wants to stay informed and you care about the issues. And it's tough to balance wanting to stay informed with wanting to stay well, mentally well. And that can sometimes be a tough balance. So I'd actually be interested to know how you're maintaining that balance of staying informed, but also taking care of yourself, because it's really important in order to stay in the fight, in order to stay and be active and out in the streets, which, by the way, there's a protest tomorrow, the Good Trouble protest. I hope that you are going to be out there wherever you are in the streets protesting Donald Trump and this administration. But I also hope that you are taking care of yourself. And me and Jesse will be out in the streets tomorrow, so look for coverage of that. Hopefully this jury duty thing is not going to interfere with that, actually. I just remembered that that is a possibility. Hopefully not.
Yesterday, the Republicans voted against releasing the files. And now there are many people saying that Donald Trump is included in the Epstein files.
Donald Trump is now so defensive over the MAGA revolt in response to his backtracking on the Epstein files, that he's actually calling his supporters weaklings. My name is Brittany Page. I host the Page Perspective on YouTube. I am Jesse's guest host for today while he is at jury duty. He is upholding his civic duty, and that should be an example to all of us to answer the call when we get our jury duty summons, even though it can be inconvenient, right? So let's get into this. We're going to get to the statement from Donald Trump on Truth Social. It's unhinged, just to let you know up front. We are going to get to Representative Dan Goldman, who during a hearing accused Trump of being in the Epstein files and said that he's hearing chatter that there's photos of Donald Trump with topless women. He uses the word women, and he issues a direct challenge to Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. We're going to get to that. But before we do, let's kind of get on the same page with this whole Epstein situation. So Jeffrey Epstein, dead. He died while waiting on his trial for sex trafficking. Donald Trump previously praised him in their friendship. There's, of course, numerous photos of them together, photos with Donald Trump and Melania and Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, none of that mattered to QAnon and other conspiracy theorists who believe that there's this epidemic of child sexual abuse being committed by Democrats, and Donald Trump is the only one who can save the children, basically. And Donald Trump wins the election after promising during interview after interview that he would release the Epstein files, that he would declassify the Epstein files. And in February, MAGA influencers got invited to the White House, and they were supposedly briefed on the Epstein files. They even got their little binders that said like part 1 of the Epstein files. That's what the binders said, supposedly. And Pam Bondi went on to give interviews where she said that the Epstein files were on her desk for review per Donald Trump's instruction. Because again, they were going to be giving these things out. They were going to be making it known to everyone, to these people who are really concerned about child sex predators, right? That's what they say. And now suddenly there's nothing more to see. There's nothing more to see here, everybody. And this in the midst of reporting coming out, like this new report from Wired, where they're showing, among other things, that almost 3 minutes are missing from the Epstein surveillance footage. So this was like a conspiracy theory that a lot of people were interested in. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because it kind of, in my brain, got coded as a conspiracy theory, and I don't pay a lot of attention to that. But now it's like, what's going on here? Why is Donald Trump acting so defensive about all of this? Why did they say they would release all of this information and now they're not going to release this information? And Donald Trump's post today is raising actually even more questions, because why is he acting like this? Let's look at this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to start here. Quote, also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters have bought into this bullshit, in quotes, for some reason. Hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about, with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems, is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. So, quite the turnaround. Quite the turnaround, and he started all of this, and now he's calling it the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. He started this. The people that he put into positions of power, this was like their #1 issue. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. There's endless clips of them during interviews saying that this was like a top priority for them, and now he's calling it a hoax, and he's attacking the people who believed him. He's attacking the people who believed what he said about exposing a child predator. So what do we make of it? You know, when you have nothing to worry about and you like log on and you write lengthy screeds about how everyone's lying about you and attacking you. Yeah. Well, it seems like Representative Dan Goldman is kind of leading the charge here with some Democrats coming out and saying, listen, this is an opportunity for us in the Democratic Party. This is an opportunity with the fracturing in the MAGA base. This is an opportunity for us to get in there and press for answers. So Representative Dan Goldman has some thoughts. Let's see what he had to say.
What's going on with the Epstein files? Donald Trump promised to release them. Pam Bondi said she had the files on her desk and that she was going to release them in the name of transparency. Kash Patel has spent years railing against the FBI to release the files. Many of my Republican colleagues were banging on the table to release the Epstein files. But now, all of a sudden, after a months-long review, Bondi and Patel say nothing to see here, no evidence that any American would want to see about accomplices, co-conspirators, or other people involved. Yesterday, the Republicans voted against releasing the files. So what's changed? Well, we all know Donald Trump has had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He flew on his plane, he hung out at parties, spoke highly of him. And now there are many people saying that Donald Trump is included in the Epstein files. In fact, there are reporters who say that there are videos of him with topless women. Elon Musk even confirmed that Trump is blocking the release of these files because he's in them. Pam Bondi says there's nothing there, but Donald Trump even acknowledges that there is evidence there. It's just not credible. It's made up. This is a Truth Social post from 9:43 this morning. It is an admission that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, and the American people deserve to know whether he is or not.
So Democrats seem to be playing hardball, and I absolutely love to see it. We need more of this because it's really an opportunity to hold people's feet to the fire. I mean, was Pam Bondi lying then, or is she lying now? Was Donald Trump lying then, or is he lying now? We need answers, and I'm sure the MAGA base needs answers as well. And I'm eager to see where this all goes. I mean, I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that the supporters that he's attacking as weaklings are going to fall in line, or are his supporters going to think this is a red flag and wonder why it is that he reversed course so suddenly and so abruptly and so strongly? I'd be curious to know what you think. You can comment below, feed that algorithm, or you can leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail. You will be cut off after 3 minutes at 714-576-4054, or send an email to daily@dollemore.com. I think this entire day I have failed to promote Patreon. Patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast, the podcast that I host with Jesse. I think I have failed to talk about how people can support the work here by becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. Hopefully Jesse doesn't watch these to see that I forgot to do that. It won't matter, but I'm sure that he'll be happy I corrected the record now. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this video with a friend. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. Go subscribe to my channel. I'm Brittany Page. I would love to see you over there. Search my name or click the link in the description below. As Jesse would say, be genuine. Take care of one another.